Hello everyone, my name is Heather and this channel is Heather Travels and I do videos about cruising and travel. Today's video is a little bit different than what I normally do, but this is a continuation of a series of videos that I've been doing for the past 2 years. If you haven't been following along, I will link the entire playlist from this video series at the end of this video so you can see how the journey has progressed. This is kind of a sad story, but it definitely affects me as a traveler, and there may be a lot of people who are in a similar situation to me that I think that this would be really important to know and helpful for. So that's why I've continued to make these videos and why you will see an element of me discussing accessibility in all of my travel vlogs. Exactly 2 years ago today, on December 4th, 2020, I was taking a load of towels downstairs in the basement of our old 1880 house that we used to live in, and I basically missed some steps and fell very hard, and I fractured both of my ankles. It was a very traumatic experience both for me and my daughter who was going down there with me. You can go back and watch the videos to get all of the details about that. We didn't realize at the time how severely I had injured myself. And even the doctors in urgent care who saw me that first day, and the podiatrist that I first saw for the first 18 months, for the first, I guess, only like 7 months, 7 months, didn't realize how severely I was injured until much later. Basically, the left ankle sustained an avulsion fracture, which is kind of like where, this is kind of gross, sorry, but this is kind of where a piece of bone actually gets pulled out. Okay, and I also suffered an avulsion fracture in the right ankle. We didn't realize that until I had an MRI, that I'd had a fracture in both ankles, until I had an MRI 5 months later. The left one healed up fine, but the right one has never healed, and it probably never will. We know it never will. It's never going to heal. It's been 2 years. It's not going to get better. The long story short is I suffered a syndesmosis injury. In addition to that fracture, which the fracture will heal fine, bone heals up fine, I tore 4 major ligaments in my right ankle. So this is what's known as a high ankle injury, and they're very tricky. They're a relatively small percentage of ankle injuries, and they can be very serious, as was true in my case. Because of this injury, I am permanently disabled now. But what I've discovered through this entire process is that there's a lot of variation in what's considered disability, okay? And there's a lot of different things that can be considered a disability, and there's different aspects of disability, okay? I'm going to explain to you a couple different things with me. Now, first of all, the most obvious one is my physical condition. As my daughter Megan says, anyone who knows you or sees you move or walk or whatever can see that you're disabled. Okay, it's very evident. If you knew me before I got hurt and you know me now, I cannot do the things I could do before. I can't walk the same. I can't move the same. I'm nothing like I was before. It's been an absolutely devastating injury. It's been a completely life-altering injury. It has completely changed the quality of my life. It was such a major thing that we had to sell that house and move to where we live now, which is all on one floor. And I guess the two things from a physical condition standpoint are, one is pain. I'm in pain every day. I've been in pain every day since I got hurt. I'll probably always be in pain. It hurts all the time, but it hurts different amounts on different days. Like right now, it's early in the morning. I haven't been up that long. I haven't walked around that much. It doesn't really hurt right now, but basically the more weight-bearing activity I do, anything where I'm standing upright, but not even just that, just sitting at my desk because of the position I have to hold it in. I mean, I can't sit with my feet if I sit with my feet on the floor, just the weight of my own leg on the ankle, it starts to hurt. So like even being able to do a desk job, like my doctor said, is not really, it still hurts. Driving is extremely painful. The more I do, the more up and about I am, the more I move, walk, stand. Standing is especially difficult. It's very, very painful. Okay, so that's the one thing. And then the second aspect of the disability for me from a physical standpoint is I can't do a lot of things. I cannot do a lot of things that most people can do, and I can't do a lot of things that I could do before I got injured. So the main ones are I can't do anything high impact. So I can't jog, I can't run, I cannot skip, jump, hop, and honestly, I can't even walk fast. So my little joke now is I'm Baymax from Big Hero 6. And whenever I have to remind my kids sometimes in my little Baymax voice, I am not fast. One way that that's affected me is I simply can't walk as fast as they can anymore. And that's really been hard because we're a fast walking family. We've always been a fast walking family. My sons are both quite tall and they have very long legs and they walk very fast. And my brother was also very, very tall. And I think growing up with my older brother who was tall and had long legs, and also my grandfather who was well over 6 feet tall man, long legs, as a little girl, I adapted and learned to walk very quickly to keep up with them. So I've always been a very fast walker, and I can't walk fast anymore. My body just simply will not let me. At best, if I try to walk fast, like, I got to catch my plane and I'm hurrying through the airport. Best case scenario is I'm overcome by intense pain and I have to stop and lean against something or sit down. Worst case scenario is I literally collapse. That happened when we were in the Boston airport one time, and I collapsed against the wall. We were trying to hurry to our gate. Megan had to run and find a wheelchair. So my body literally will not let me walk fast anymore. And the other reason that that's really quite upsetting is because walking is an excellent form of exercise, and that's how I always stayed very trim. And so I have gained quite a bit of abdominal weight. It's really just my tummy. And some of that may be, the age I'm at. I'm probably approaching menopause, just being over 50 now and things like that. Some of that is just metabolism changes and stuff. But I can definitely see how not being able to walk fast and not being able to get that level of movement in that I used to has affected my overall health. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of disability is when you hear people say, I'm on disability, okay, or I get disability, or I'm on disability, what they're talking about is they receive Social Security disability benefits. If you're not aware, in the United States, we have the Social Security Administration, and the Social Security Administration does a number of things. The main one that people know about is they take it out of your paycheck, or if you're self-employed like I am with YouTube, we have to pay self-employment quarterly taxes on your paycheck. The thing that's FICA and Medicare, those are taken out of your paycheck, and part of that money is going to Social Security so that when you stop working or when you retire, which I don't know if anybody really retires in the traditional sense anymore, or when you become permanently disabled, you get that money back in benefits. Some of the other things that Social Security does is they do death benefits for survivors of people who died, especially for children. They do a number of other things. Okay, so the Social Security Administration is very important. Lots of people really depend on their Social Security. My parents have both been receiving Social Security for a number of years, but they also both continue to work. So that's something that happens with a lot of people too. Now, what I came to understand is that if I was approved for Social Security disability benefits, it's basically like you're retired at that point. Now, as an aside, I actually technically am retired at this point. I was a licensed teacher for 22 years, and I stopped teaching. Okay, well, I didn't teach at the beginning of the pandemic because the schools were closed. Okay, the schools were all closed. There was no job for me. And then I got injured, and then I couldn't go back to work because of my injury. So sometime in that whole thing, I think it was before I had actually even applied for Social Security disability. Because the one thing about Social Security disability is you have to show that the injury will keep you from working for at least 1 year or will lead to your death. Now, so in my case, the injury, it's been 2 years, but I waited until it had been a year before I even applied. So I knew that that wouldn't be an issue of proving that the injury was going to last a year because it already had. But anyway, going back to teaching, sometime in there, I retired from my job, basically, from teaching, and I actually cashed in my retirement fund. And that's been part of what we've lived off of and stuff, because I was in a position financially where since I couldn't work with the pandemic and everything, and then I got injured and I didn't have income coming in, we needed that money. So technically from my career for most of my life, I'm retired from that job. Okay, if you get disability from Social Security, you get the same amount, you get the same benefit from Social Security paid out to you as you would have if you retired. Basically, it's just like your retirement starts now. It would have started for me at 50 instead of, at full retirement age at 67 or 70 or whatever it is, depending on your age. So that's how that works. Okay, when I applied for Social Security disability, which I've talked about in past videos, it was very backed up. It's taking a long time. For me, it took about 10 months. So 10 months from the time that I applied until I received a decision. They did, shortly before I received my decision, send me to 2 additional doctors besides my own primary care physician, the 2 different podiatrists I saw, and physical therapists that I went to. I went to all of those doctors and they had all of those records. Okay? They had x-rays, they had my MRI, they had all of that. They decided they didn't have enough medical information, and so they sent me to 2 additional doctors, which was kind of interesting. So this was in September. They sent me to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I don't know, some mental health professional. And it was very quick. I was in and out of there in like 10 minutes. And I asked him flat out at the end, I said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "We're trying to determine if you're suffering from any mental illness." They were also testing, I read up on it later, they're also checking for, and I could see this by his questions, they're checking for general cognitive ability and memory. So he gave me some different little I'm going to tell you 5 words and I want you to remember them in order. And I'm going to come back later and ask you what were those 5 words I asked you to remember. Things like that. Who was the president now? Who's president before that? Who's president before that? Who's the one before that? Things like that. Okay. So, and then ask me general stuff about my background and things. So I was in and out of there really quickly. And I think basically what that determined is he determined very quickly that I have no cognitive impairment, my memory is fine, and I'm not suffering from any mental illness. The other doctor that they sent me to, these were both within a week of each other. She was a general, like a hospitalist, and she had come from Minnesota, and there were a whole bunch of appointments that day. So there were a whole bunch of other people. It was in a chiropractor's office 1 town over from me, and they told me they just rent the space. There was a nurse with her and a x-ray technician. The x-ray technician took additional x-rays of both of my ankles, maybe for comparison, I'm not sure. They took my blood pressure, which, by the way, my blood pressure has gone way up since I've got injured, and I am concerned about that and need to talk to my doctor about it. It might be related to the pain, actually. It might be related to the fact that I'm almost always in pain. Otherwise, I'm a little concerned it might also be diet and lack of exercise, but it could also, again, be age. So I don't know. I have to talk to my doctor about that. And then she was great. She listened to me and really wanted to know about like how I'm able to function. Basic things, getting dressed, household chores. I talked to her about how difficult it is for me to drive and how painful that is. We talked about the stairs problem. We talked about all that, and she took lots of notes. I mean, she was typing very, very fast. And then she had me do some movement stuff to see what I could do. Can you walk on this line foot in front of foot? Can you squat? I can't. She had me, can you move this and stuff like that? And she had me do a bunch of stuff like that. I think it was pretty evident to her, well, yeah, this woman has obviously got a disability. But she said, I just send my report off to the determination people at Social Security, and then they decide if you qualify for disability or not. So here's where it gets tricky. Qualifying for disability and being disabled are not the same thing. Okay? So being disabled, as my daughter said, when I said earlier in the video, anyone looking at me or seeing how I'm able to move and function can see that I have a disability or that I'm disabled. But how you qualify for disability with Social Security, it's purely work related. And I was very surprised when I was researching this while I was waiting for my decision to learn that the majority of people who actually do qualify for Social Security disability are not people like me. They're not people who are injured and who have some kind of physical impairment. I mean, I'm sure there are people like that, people in wheelchairs and things like that. They tend to be people, the top conditions that get approved for Social Security disability are things like lung conditions, heart disease, cancer, arthritis was a big one. So I was really kind of surprised at that. I'm like, oh, so it wasn't what I was expecting at all. And the criteria for if you get approved for Social Security disability is basically what I've learned from the decision letter I got is that you can't be able to work at all. Okay, now there's a confusing element of this because they also tell you that if you are on Social Security disability, you can work and earn up to $1,350 a month and you can still be on disability. So nobody can explain to me how that's what? You have to not be able to work at all. But if you can't work at all, you can work this much. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, but long story short, I was denied. And this is what my decision letter said. I do feel they have a fair assessment of my situation. It still sucks, but I do think they have a good grasp of it. In my decision letter where they said you've been denied for Social Security disability benefits, they said, we recognize that you have significant physical limitations. So they understand that. If they hadn't said that, I would have been kind of really bothered, but they understand that. And they said, we understand that you are no longer able to perform the job that you were educated and trained for. So that for me, that was teaching. They understand I can't do that anymore because of my injury. And they said, we understand that you may have to do work that is not what you're trained for and that does not pay anything close to what you were earning before. But we feel that you could adjust to other work. So basically what they're saying is if you have the ability to earn any money at all, you're not going to qualify. And I already do earn other money. I earn money from YouTube. YouTube is my job now. Traveling and making travel content for YouTube is my job now. And I think they recognize, well, she can do that. And so therefore I don't qualify for Social Security disability. I didn't appeal. Everybody was like, you should appeal, you should appeal. I'm not going to appeal because they're right. That is the situation, first of all. And secondly, I looked it up and only 1 to 13% of cases win their appeal. The other thing, people have asked me, did you have a lawyer? Yes. I had a law firm, a disability law firm representing me who did absolutely nothing. I was urged to sign up with this law firm by my mom, whose ex-husband had used them, and he did get disability. He had a back injury. He was a city bus driver in the city of Minneapolis, and he couldn't drive bus anymore. And somehow they must have determined that he couldn't work at all, and he got disability. But he had used this particular firm, and they did all the work for him, which I can see. Well, I did all the work for myself, and they did nothing. They really didn't do anything. And so if I had gotten the disability benefits at this time, I actually would have been kind of ticked because when you win your case and you're awarded Social Security disability benefits, you get a big lump sum at the beginning to cover all the time that you've been off work since you got injured. So for me, that would have been 2 years of money that I would have gotten all at once. And that law firm would have taken a nice big cut of it. And I was not going to be happy about that. It's because they didn't do anything for me. I had like 2 phone conversations and a little bit of paperwork back and forth, which I had to call and correct because they made so many mistakes on it. It said in the letter, in my decision letter, that in the future, if my condition continues to worsen, which it could, the doctors have warned me about that, and I get to the point where I can't work at all, then I should reapply. And I will definitely do that. And if I reapply in the future, I'm not going to use that firm. I'll just do it myself. So that's where I'm at with Social Security disability. Now, so I've talked about 2 things. I've talked about the physical aspects of being disabled, and I've talked about Social Security benefits, so disability benefits. So as I kind of explained just now, Social Security disability benefits is really related to your ability to work and earn money. This is also different than being disabled. Let me show you what I have here. Okay, this is my red temporary, see it has a T for temporary, disability parking permit that I had for 6 months. I got this in April of 2022 and it expired in October of 2022. My podiatrist gave me this permit when I asked for it. I could have had this the whole dang time, but I didn't know to ask for it. So if you are in a position where you need one of these, ask your doctor. Nobody ever told me that you could ask for one of these. The way you get these, at least in Wisconsin, is your doctor has to give you a form that they fill out saying that you qualify for a disabled parking permit. So there's basically 3 stages of disabled parking. There's the red one. I'm not sure if this is the same in every state, but the red one is temporary. I'd never actually seen a red one before until I got one. I've never seen a red one before, and I've never seen one since. So, but if you see a red one, that's what it is. It's temporary. And it was good for 6 months because that's what my doctor wrote for on the form. I think they can be good for different amounts of time. Okay, well, that one expired. So then I'm not seeing that podiatrist anymore because he basically told me not to come back. Oh, I should say that. Both the podiatrists basically left me hanging and told me not to come back. And I'll come back to that as to why that is. Okay, so then I updated my primary care physician, told her about the Social Security decision I had received, told her about how my condition was and things like that, and she gave me a permanent one. Now, you will notice it still has an expiration date on it. They don't want to give you these forever, but the P is for permanent, and it's blue. You've probably seen a lot of these around. Blue one is a more permanent one. They do still have an expiration date, most of them, and the reason for that is they recognize that people's physical conditions could change, they could improve. They want you to make sure you're following up with your doctor. So it's kind of just like a license plate. Got the month and the year. You have to get this renewed by the time this expires, just like you do your license plate registration. The doctor gives you a form. You have to take the form to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get this. But they have them right there and they just give it to you. So I got this recently and now I have this permanent one and this is good for 4 years. So this is really nice because it is definitely really handy to be able to park in those disabled parking spots. The third stage of this would be the people that you see that have an actual disabled license plate. So there's the temporary disabled parking permit. There's the permanent disabled parking permit that are good for like years of time. My mom has one. She has a knee injury and has had knee replacement surgery, and hers was good for 5 years. Because that's what her doctor wrote it for. And then there's the license plates where you actually see the little wheelchair symbol on people's license plates. That's an even more permanent type. So there's basically, my understanding is there's 3 types. Now what these are for disability parking are more really for people like me. The criteria for how you qualify for these are you can't walk. Okay, basically. You can't walk without assistance, or you can't walk without great difficulty, or you can't walk without, you have to rest, you have a wheelchair, a cane, a crutch, a brace, or you're going to fall down or whatever. So these are really based on mobility, the qualification for these parking permits. So when you see a disability parking permit, it means that the person can't get very far very easily. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be something with your feet or legs. There are people with conditions, they have COPD and they can't breathe, or, things like that too, that, or they're very weakened from chemotherapy from cancer or something like that. There could be other conditions that you can't necessarily tell by looking that people could have these disability parking permits. But basically, the criteria medically for getting a disability parking permit is that you have difficulty traveling the distance. So it's nice that I'm able to have that, because that really does help me out. Because what'll happen is if I have to park a long way away, which I was doing, for the first year plus that I didn't know I could have asked for one of these, I don't know how I found out I could have asked for it. I don't know I don't know how I found that out, but I'm letting you know, so now you know. Just the walking from the car into the store would so wreck me, and I'd be in so much pain that then I couldn't get around the store, and I'd have to get an ECV in the store. I still do when I go places. I can tell you just recently, we went to Target one time, or Walmart, and I had to use an ECV, and we went to the Minnesota Zoo over family weekend when we went to see Megan at college in October, and I had to get an ECV. So I still do, in some situations, like to use an ECV if I can. You are probably wondering, Well, why didn't you just have surgery and you'd be fine? Okay, this is why. There's kind of two aspects to my injury. Your lower leg has two bones, the tibia and the fibula. And when you have the type of injury that I have, the syndesmosis is kind of an internal, flexible, I guess if you will, joint of fibers and things, and it gets ruptured. And basically what that's doing is part of what it's doing is holding those two leg bones together. And it's very evident when you look at my x-rays that my tibia and my fibula are too far apart. So those bones being too far apart is one aspect of my injury. The other aspect of my injury is that I tore 4 very major ligaments in my ankle. Now you have different structures in your body. You have bones, you have muscles, you have tendons, and you have ligaments. My first podiatrist actually said to me at one point, it would have been better if you had shattered every bone in your leg, because that I could fix. And basically what he was saying to me is, I can't fix this. Both doctors I saw, both, foot and ankle specialists and surgeons that I saw, brought up surgery, talked to me about the surgery that they could do, but the only thing that surgery does is tie those two leg bones together. That's the only surgery they could really offer me. It's also called a button surgery or a tightrope surgery. They just tie the bottom of those two leg bones together so they stay kind of together better, okay? But that's not really my problem. That is a problem, but that's not the problem that's really causing me the most trouble. And they know this, and they know that they can't fix what's really wrong. The bigger problem is those torn ligaments. And the torn ligaments are never going to heal beyond what they've healed now. And my regular doctor explained, I think I mentioned this in an earlier video, the reason that torn ligaments don't really ever heal is because they don't have a good blood supply. Even if you could somehow graft like a ligament on there or something, it's still not going to have a good blood supply. So they can never really completely heal. And so the way my doctors would bring up surgery, and then the next visit I would come, they just sort of dropped it. They never mentioned it again. Like, they're like, well, you might need surgery, and this is the surgery we would do. And then I'd come back where they were supposed to decide if I was going to have the surgery, and they just were like, yeah, there's nothing we can really do, and so just, you don't need to come back. And they kind of just left me out there hanging. They both did the same thing. And even when I went to physical therapy, I was expecting when I went to physical therapy, the physical therapist told me that the doctor gives him my diagnosis and my prognosis. Now, he didn't tell me what my prognosis was, but based on the things the physical therapist said, I determined that the prognosis was, this is just how it is now, because they can't fix it. Instead of setting up like goals for me, like, okay, you're going to be able to walk this fast by this time, and he didn't do any of that. The physical therapist actually said to me 2 things that really stuck out. One was when I was talking to him about my channel, and I said that I was going to try to include, more information about people traveling with a disability on my channel. He said, that's probably a really good idea. And then when I talked to him about how walking was my preferred form of exercise, he said, well, maybe what we can do here in physical therapy is figure out a different exercise you can do to keep trim besides walking. So, not a good sign as far as the permanency of this condition. The doctors never said why they didn't order the surgery. They just kind of left it out there. But I have a 2-part theory, okay? And I believe this is what's true. One part is they know they can't fix it. Surgery won't fix it. You can fix bone. That's why he said it'd be better if I'd shattered all the bones in my leg. You can fix bones, they can screw them together, put titanium plates in there, all that stuff. You can do that. They can fix muscles. I have a former coworker of mine who just had a significant muscle surgery repair, and she's had lots of physical therapy and stuff too, but they set a goal. She's constantly getting better. She's improving, okay? They can even fix tendons. They can't repair ligaments. The one aspect I think for them is that they know they can't fix it. The other aspect is they recognize my condition, my situation. I'm a single mom. My 2 kids that are still technically at home, neither of them drive. They've never taken driver's ed. They don't have licenses, okay? I live in the middle of nowhere, okay? If I had that surgery that they talked about, it might fix the bone thing. It might make that a little better, but I'd have to be completely non-weight bearing on my right foot for 6 to 8 weeks. I've absolutely no idea how I would do that. I'm a single mom. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Nobody can drive. I wouldn't be able to drive. I have no one to help me. I mean, yes, we're all on one floor now, but even if I had one of those wheelie things where you can put your knee up on it, so you don't put your weight on your foot, the carpet in our bedrooms is so thick, I don't think it would roll in here. It'd be extremely, extremely difficult. If they were going to do that surgery, I really should have had it right away when I first got injured. But again, I don't think it really would have fixed it, because I really feel, and I think the doctors feel too, that it's the torn ligaments, especially the anterior tibiofibular ligament, which is the one in the front of your foot here, this one, that makes your foot go up and down, okay? That's the one that gives me the most trouble. That's the one that causes me such pain when I drive. That's the one that prevents me from being able to go downstairs. And when I say go downstairs, I'm talking about even like stepping off a curb, stepping the one step I have out of my shower here. These are very, very difficult and painful things for me to do. Those are because of the torn ligaments, and that's not something they can fix. So, long update there on the 2-year update on my ankle injury. For those of you who've been following along, I hope this kind of gives you some resolution, if you will. I mean, it's not a great resolution, but that's where I'm at. So, and for those of you who maybe have had an injury or are wondering about Social Security disability, or how do you get a disability parking permit or anything like that, I hope that this video is helpful to you and gives you some information that you need, or maybe things you were wondering about. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is, how does this affect me as a traveler? You've seen I can still travel. You can still travel with a disability. The world is becoming more and more accessible to people with disabilities all the time. They're constantly improving on that. Disney actually does an amazing job of accommodating people with disabilities, people with food allergies, sensory things, all sorts of stuff. We did have a lot of trouble in Europe. Some places were better than others. Paris was exceptionally difficult. London was a little better. The big one for me really when I'm traveling, it's kind of 2 things. One is the amount of walking I have to do. I can walk, but obviously the more I'm on my feet, the more swollen my ankle gets and the more pain I might experience. The bigger one for me is stairs and having to go down things. Like, the one thing I'm always thinking about is my love of lighthouses. I love lighthouses. I could get up there fine, but getting back down, I could do it, but it'd be extremely difficult. It would take me a very, very long time. Similar to what I experienced coming back down the spiral stairs at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris this summer. It will take me a very, very long time, and I'm going to be in people's way, because I have to actually go on the wrong side of the stairs and go down with my injured foot first and go down sideways. That's the only way I can do it. And then the other thing is, I really don't want to do trips where I have to drive a lot anymore. Although the one thing I will say about driving, because what it is about driving, it's pressing the pedals, and particularly having to press the brake pedal and hold the brake pedal. I still switch feet. I switch to my left foot when I have to be at a red light or a stop sign or in traffic. I hold the brake with my left foot because it hurts too much to hold it with my right foot. Actually, driving long distances on the freeway is not a problem, because I can put the cruise on and then my ankle doesn't have to do anything. It's when I have to drive in town, or in traffic, or in, lots of stop and go and things like that. So, stoplights. So like actually running errands here in my little town that I live in is much more painful and difficult for me than driving from here to Megan's college in Minnesota. So that's kind of how my disability affects me as a traveler. I just have to find ways to accommodate it. I can still pretty much do almost everything I want to. I mean, I'm not going to be able to run a marathon or anything, but I can still probably go every place I want to go. There just might be certain activities that I might choose not to do, or really it would be best if I didn't try to do. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to watch this fairly long video. I hope that this was helpful and informative to you. I don't know that I'll do any more updates on my ankle unless there's some kind of significant change in the future. But if you're interested in travel content and seeing how I manage when we travel with this disability, be sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming travel videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a great day and safe travels.